Okay, welcome to Faith and Calm. This is class number 153. And being that Friday is Pesach Sheni, we're going to talk a little bit about the idea of Pesach Sheni. Now, you may not have heard of this. I think maybe it came last year, you heard about it. Pesach Sheni, Sheni means two. So it's the second Pesach. You didn't know there's two Pesachs. Yes, this Pesach is a famous Pesach. This is 1 month after the original Pesach. You have a second Pesach. You should have some matzah. That's about it. You should have some matzah on that day. But it's mentioned in the Chumash. It's mentioned in the Chumash. It says that there were certain people who, when the Jews went out of Egypt, they were responsible for carrying the coffin, the Aron of Yosef and his brothers. And so therefore they were Tame, impure, from in contact of death, which meant that they cannot eat the Pesach offering, which all the other Jews had. So they came to Moshe and they said, why should we lose out? we didn't do anything bad here. We're doing something good. And we're being punished. We're not getting our we're not able to eat that. We're not able to celebrate Pesach with everybody else. So Moses said, wait here, I'll ask Hashem what to do. And Hashem said, we're going to make a special holiday. All the Jews who happen to be, for whatever reason, were not able to have the first Passover, they can have a second Passover. Which, if you're thinking a thinking person, you should wonder, why this? I mean, it's not like, Friday night, if you happen to be accidentally late and you forgot to light your Shabbos candles, make a second Shabbos on, Wednesday next week. God didn't do that.
You can't do
He didn't
that.
say, you can't do that.
Yeah.
He doesn't say you missed Rosh Hashanah and you Sukkot, so you can know what you can bring, have a little oven esrog on Purim. You didn't do that. This is the one holiday like that. And not only was it the one holiday, but God wasn't planning to have this holiday. Jews asked for this holiday. So that's also very interesting. So that's there's something interesting about this holiday, and it's very special. The Rebbe explained that this is the holiday for second chances. This is Nishkain for fallen. It's never too late. Whenever you mess up, this is the holiday for people who mess up. Mess up, you get a second chance. Now that is an interesting idea. You mess up, you get a second chance. Yeah, God gives you a second chance. So this is what we're going to talk about today, is about why this is such an important lesson in life, an important lesson in how we look at ourselves, that, sometimes, many times people think that, they just messed up. I was looking for material. I read something from Bela Oladort. She writes for Chabad.org. She says some guy came up to her and he said, I really messed up. I dropped out of high school. I ran around. I'm older. I'm not married. I didn't get married, and so forth. It's I didn't settle down. I don't have a profession, and so forth. It's really too late for me. I just ruined my life. She goes, how old are you? And he says, 28. So for some people, that's it. Life's over at 28. I think most of our class could laugh at that. We get second chances, 28, 68, 78, 88. God is interested in us. He's interested in you and getting a second chance. It's never too late. It's never impossible. And it may be that very much that was exactly what was the plan. What do I mean by that? So to illustrate that a little bit, there is a famous Tana, one of the first group of rabbis after the destruction of the temple, that his name was Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir was a student of Rabbi Akiva. He lived roughly 100, 150 years after the destruction of the first temple. And Rabbi Meir is quite a interesting person, because it says about Rabbi Meir, it says that whenever in the Mishnah you always have, this rabbi said, Rabbi Akiva said that, Rabbi Shimon said this, Rabbi Elazar said this. And then you read the Mishnah, it says, which rabbi said it, because it's important to know who said it, because It might be that, it's just his way of looking at things. So you need to understand how he looks at it because he might be different than other rabbis. So, but if it says, if there's no rabbi at all, Stam rabbi, that means it's Rabbi Meir. So, wow, that means that he's almost everywhere. I'm going to mute Devorah because there's background noise there. So Rabbi Meir. So let me tell you a few stories about Rabbi Meir, and then from Rabbi Meir, we'll maybe understand better what Pesach Sheni is about. So one thing about Rabbi Meir is that he's buried in Tveria, and on his grave it says that the stone was put up on Pesach Sheni. So many people say that means that he passed away on Pesach Sheni. It's not 100% clear, but he's going to be very connected with Pesach Sheni. Why? Why is he connected with Pesach Sheni? So one of the main things we know about Rabbi Meir, other than he was a student of Rabbi Akiva, and that much of the Mishnah is his name and him. He did it. There's a couple little stories about him. One story about him is that he didn't have just one teacher, Rabbi Akiva. He had a second teacher who was named Elisha ben Avuya. Now, of all the maybe 1,000 different rabbis that are mentioned in the Gemara, as either the ones of the writers of the Mishnah or writers of the Gemara, we know that all of them are very holy people. And Rabbi Elisha is the only one who was the black sheep. He was a big scholar. He knew a tremendous amount, and he just completely left Judaism altogether. He was just like, he even joined with the Romans against the Jews. He was that bad. Didn't keep Shabbos, didn't keep kosher, didn't keep Yom Kippur. It's like unbelievable. Somebody with his depth of knowledge who went so far away. In fact, he got a nickname called Acher. How did he get the nickname Acher? So one time he saw a prostitute on Shabbos and he said, let's have some whatever. And she said, she recognized him. And she said, you're Rabbi Meir? She says, I don't deal with people like you. I have different.
Not Rabbi Meir.
Yeah.
Is that what's
I'm not Meir. You're Elisha ben Avuya.
Yeah.
And so she said, right, thank you. So she said, I don't deal with people like you. I have different clientele. He says, no. Yeah, I'm okay for you, and so forth. And he steps down and he plucks a flower and he gives it to her on Shabbos. And she says, oh, you're not really Elisha ben Avuya. You're somebody else. You're an Acher, a different person. And that name stuck with him, that he was the Acher. Anyway, Rabbi Meir never abandoned this guy because he said, he has tremendous teachings. He has a lot of lessons, the things in his head that are unique. And he would keep learning from him. So one time they were walking on Shabbos. Rabbi Meir, of course, was walking. And Elisha ben Avuya, Acher, was riding his horse because he didn't care about Shabbos and didn't care about the rules about riding your horse. And he was running after him, and he was listening, and he was teaching a shir. And eventually, Rabbi Elisha ben Avuya told him, you got to go back. I mean, you've gone too far. You've gone almost too far, and you can only walk so far on Shabbos, 2,000 amos. So So Rabbi Meir said, I go back. You have to return. You have to return back to Hashem. Not just I have to return. So he said, it's too late for me. I already heard that I'm an Acher. I'm not going to be accepted. Everybody can return except for me. Anyway, so why did he keep learning with this guy? In fact, the rabbis say that Rabbi Meir got into trouble for this. They said, you shouldn't be learning from this guy. He's, Yes, you have to learn from proper people. And the Rav said about him, he said, no. He ate the fruit of the pomegranate and threw away the shell, which is an odd way of saying it. Usually, I'm not going to ask the question, but usually you have to peel the pomegranate to eat the insides. So this is Rabbi Meir. There's another story with Rabbi Meir.
I don't get it.
I'm going to explain it to you.
Oh, okay, good.
I didn't explain it to you. Okay. And the other thing about Rabbi Meir says that he was a sofer, and he used to write. In fact, one time he was going to a town, and in this town they didn't have a Megillah, and so he wrote the entire Megillah from heart because he didn't have any sources, which is not allowed. You're supposed to always copy from something else. So the rabbis wonder, what is he doing here? And then also, he used to said that in And let me finish with this story with him. So it says that in the Gemara, it says that in Rabbi Meir, there's a line in the beginning of the Chumash. It says that when Adam and Chava did what they did in the Garden of Eden, God came and made them ketunos of or garments of skins to cover themselves. He gave them some clothing. It says or is spelled skin is spelled aleph vav ayin vav resh. And it says in Rebbe Meir's Torah, it was or. God made them garments of light, aleph vav resh, which is not just a change of a letter, it's a change of meaning altogether, which means it's not a kosher Sefer Torah. But what are we saying about Rebbe Meir? Rebbe Meir, he was so connected with Torah, so connected with the ideas of Torah. He had a different way of looking at everything. And so he could look at something and he would see the Torah in a way, not as that you have to struggle it down here below through reasoning this argument and that's argument. He saw it directly. He had a vision of how everything actually all fit together. And this is what enabled him to look at people or look at events or look at what was happening to him in a completely different light. In fact, Meir means light. In fact, it means the source of light. So he was a rabbi of light. What does it mean to be a rabbi of light? A rabbi of light means that when he saw Elisha, he didn't see anything negative in him because immediately he saw even the negativity in this person as something that's positive that can be utilized for good. Even when Elisha was saying bad things, he immediately saw, this part is corrupted, and this is what he's really trying to say. And that's why also, when we say skin conceals what's underneath the person. It doesn't. You don't see it. But when you see light, you see the light. You see it directly. So he did. Unlike it wasn't that he wrote it differently. It's that he saw in things the light that was the hidden light that really is inside of all events and all people and everything going around him. So he was so fused and united with it, he could write the Torah from the heart because he didn't need to copy it from somewhere else. To make this a little bit more clear, let me tell you two stories. So the first story is one you may have heard of before. There was this guy, Sidney, Dr. Sidney, I forget his name, Fleischman or something like that. And he worked as a chemist at a company called 3M. You may have heard of 3M. And he was trying to invent glues. That was a very big thing that 3M had a lot of chemists, did a lot of chemical work and stuff like that. He was trying to make an indestructible glue. And one time he went and he made a glue and he tried it out. And that glue had an interesting property to it. You couldn't move it sideways, but it didn't stick very well. There's a glue that just doesn't stick well. And he didn't know what to do with the thing. But he said, this is interesting. And he said, you know what? Rather than consider myself a failure, I'm going to start giving lectures and maybe somebody could figure out I have a solution to some problem here, but I don't know what to do with it.
I don't know what the problem is.
I don't know what the problem is. I know what the answer is. He talked for 5 years at different 3M seminars. And finally, there was this one guy there who happened to be a churchgoer who on Sundays had this problem with book notes falling out of the books, the Psalms. Yeah, bookmarks. Said, that would be perfect, can we just, and he took a piece of yellow paper and they came up with this thing called Post-it marks. And the rest was there's millions of dollars for 3M. So he was a success. He just didn't know. He thought that he was a failure. But that's what it is. That's Pesach Sheni. Pesach Sheni is all about, you think that you're a failure, but maybe God is just planning a different way for you to actually succeed. And he was more successful and more famous for the story than if he had been just a very good, competent chemist. because nobody would be talking the story, but everybody talks the story because it's so relevant, because so many times we miss the opportunity that we think what we were doing was a failure, and really it's not a failure. It's just it's a solution to a problem that we just don't know what the problem was, but it's the solution for somebody. And that's an important lesson. The second story I'm going to tell you is about the Lubavitcher Rebbe. There was once a man from England who was in the fur business, and he.
Oh, I know I was printed out. Okay, go ahead.
His name was Katzela, yeah. And he was becoming religious. Actually, he had like 2 children, and he wanted more children. He had no children. Somebody invited him to Crown Heights. He came, flew in, and he talked to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe gave him a bracha, and he had another boy and another girl. So he became closer to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. One time he was visiting 770, he came to Crown Heights, and the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, you're in the fur business. He said, can we make a partnership? And the man thought, wow, partner with the Rebbe on that business? Yeah, I'll partner with you. And so the Rebbe said, fine. And there's one rule about being my partner. And that is, when you're partners, you have to make the decisions together. You can't just make your decision on your own. You have to ask the other partner whether he agrees with you. The guy said, okay, fine, I'll be the partner. So the Rebbe gave him a little bit of money, $1, $2, whatever, a token. He told him, what?
You don't know how long, it could have been more.
I heard it was very small. I didn't, the actual story that I was reading was in the kids magazine, didn't say how much money. So, he said, fine, the Rebbe said, and what I want you to do with this is, there's a certain kind of fur called muskrat. I think you should buy a bunch of that fur and start making, coats from it. So he went and he invested his money and he bought a lot of that, and he started the fur factory. They were making this stuff. The Rebbe asked him, how much have you done so far? And he's told him, and he said, no, you have to do far more. He says, I don't have any more spare cash. The Rebbe says, you have to borrow. So he went to the bank and he asked to borrow some money. And they said, that's far more than we can give out. And he said, and so he gave the message back to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said, have somebody call Rabbi Groner. And they called the bank man called the Rabbi Groner, and they said, okay, fine, we're going to give you a bigger loan, but you have to realize that the interests are going to be higher, and we're going to demand payment back. So now he's in debt, and he's making coats. And as he's making more and more of these coats, he's asking, can I start selling them? And the Rebbe says, no, hold on to them. And then the price starts going down. And he starts getting he's nervous. And so he starts calling up 770, and he starts asking, Rebbe, the price has gone down. We're going to lose money, but we can still, it happens. So we'll lose money, but we'll do something again later. If we keep going like this, we'll go bankrupt. The Rebbe says, we're not selling. The price drops. It goes down 25%, 50%. The guy is like, this is the end of his life. He had a big business. He had a lot of people, and this is the end. And he's calling all the time, 770, what are we going to do with the money? We've lost a tremendous amount. We'll never be able to pay back. The bank is calling me. And the Rebbe says, hold tight. So he's holding. What else can he do at this point? At this point, it's already all lost. So, he's very upset. He's upset with Chabad. He's upset that he got involved in this business. And then slowly, the price starts going up. So he calls up the Rebbe and he says, it's back up another 25%. I think we should sell now. Who knows? It may go back down again. The Rebbe says, no way. We're making a profit. Hold on to it. Now he's got all of the stuff in the warehouse. The bank is bothering him. And finally, it starts getting back to break even. And he says, let's sell. And the Rebbe says, no, we're making a profit. We're not selling. And then there's a little profit. And then he still says, no, it's not selling. What had happened was that he had basically bought so much of the muskrat on the world market that there was nothing around anymore. And all of a sudden, it was becoming in fashion again. And people were starting to call up and trying to find out, where is all the muskrat? And he had all of it. So the price started shooting up. And finally, it was like doubled, more than double. And he calls the Rebbe and says, can we sell now? And he says, yeah, you can sell now. So he sold, and he made a tremendous amount of money. tremendous amount. And he brought half the profits to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And the Rebbe told him, I don't need the profits. You can give it to Chabad of England, make a cheder, and you should be good benched. Anyway, the guy says to the Rebbe, he says, this was such a good deal. Maybe we should do this again. The Rebbe said, yeah, partner. You don't have any faith in what is this class called? Faith and calm. You don't have it. You don't have the faith and calm. And that's also the message of Pesach Sheni. It's the realization that you are really one with Hashem. And Hashem is invested in your success more than even your success. That's why he gives you all of these talents, all of these abilities that keeps the heart beating, it keeps the lungs going, keeps the eyes working, it keeps your life going. He gives you everything every single moment of life is an unbelievable gift. You can just ask the people who don't have it how much they would give away for it. It's everything. And sometimes life is definitely difficult, and that is true. And it's worth sometimes having a cry about some of the difficulties. Yes, that's true. But on the other hand, you have to look at the big picture, and that is, sometimes what we're going through is really just giving us certain capabilities and potentials and abilities that we wouldn't have normally had. Just like the guy with the Post-it note, he would have never gotten to the point of where he was without that failure. So that failure was really part of his success. So sometimes we're looking and we're saying that it's a failure and it's really not working and everything is not right. The answer is that actually you're giving something very special. And with that, I think I have gotten to the end of my little talk here. We have a question in the audience. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I thought I heard you saying the original reason why there was a Pesach Sheni was because they were tameh from carrying Yosef's bone. Is that what you said?
His coffin, yes. Mm-hmm.
His bone, right? His coffin, right? So that was the original reason.
That was the original story. That is the story that is mentioned in Chumash, and that is the reason that it says. What you're bringing out here is that obviously a holiday that is for all times has a lesson for all times for every single person. And the message that the Rebbe emphasized for this holiday is that this is the holiday of second chances for everyone. This is the holiday for those people who missed out for the first time. That the ones who mess up. So this is the holiday for all of us. For whatever reasons, we didn't get it. The life was not a perfect straight path, direct. It had a lot of twisty paths. And nevertheless,
but I feel bad to interrupt, but I'm confused. So,
okay,
Pesach Sheni for the people that weren't able to participate in the first Pesach because they were tameh. Yes. That's what I don't understand why this. I'm sorry.
So when they're tameh, you can't, you remember part of the big thing on Pesach was, it's not like today,
Right, the Korban Pesach,
the temple, right. You bring a carbon. So you went to the temple, which in that case was the Mishkan, and you had to bring a sacrifice. Now you can't go into the Mishkan or the temple if you're tameh. You're not allowed. So these people were not allowed to participate in the Pesach Seder.
All of them were not only the ones that carried him.
Yeah, the ones that carried him.
Just the one that carried him. Okay.
Anybody else who was tameh for whatever other reason, and so forth.
Okay.
This holiday for all of them.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I just
that's okay.
Wasn't able to concentrate. It's very interesting. Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. Good. We are switching place seats.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Good. So, I can add to that. Yeah, Hashem gave them the holiday. One thing that it says is that, these people were crying over missing out on a mitzvah like other people would cry over missing out on something, delicious or some delicious event. The worst thing in the world to them was to miss out on a mitzvah, and Hashem loves that. And so that's another reason he gave them a special holiday. Because that's how a Jew is supposed to be, that if you're for some reason unable to do a mitzvah, it hurts. and you complain. So, so anyway, so okay, so I'd like to start by saying the four things that I usually say. Number one, that we're in an extraordinary time. Why is it extraordinary? Because we know that the Lubavitcher Rebbe said that we're in the era of Mashiach. We've begun the era of Mashiach. And he told us that Mashiach has already been revealed. He told us that Mashiach has already been appointed. He told and he told us that the job is up to us. That the job of the rest of the job is up to us. And we have to remember that the person who told us this, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, has the most incredible track record of any human being I've ever come across. I've never seen anybody with a track record of saying things that came true. And in Jewish law, even if you say if somebody who is a tzaddik, perfect in their deeds and their Torah learning and everything else, if they predict two things that come true, they are a proven prophet. And from that point on, it is against Torah law to doubt them. You're not allowed to doubt them anymore once they're a proven prophet. So anyway, the Rebbe said 32 years ago on the 28th of Nisan, he said, I have done everything that's in my power, and now I'm turning the job over to you. I've done my share. Now the rest is up to you. And as I said a few weeks before that, he told us what I think is one of the most astounding things that has ever been said in the history of the world, and that is he said that Mashiach has already been appointed. It's a done deal. It happened, and the Rebbe said that the only thing that's left is for the people to accept him. And so when a few weeks later he said, I've done everything I can, he wasn't saying something in resignation or defeat. He was saying the truth, that I have done everything that I can, and the rest is up to the people. Because the people, there's an interesting thing about Mashiach. Mashiach is called Melech HaMashiach. And Melech HaMashiach means he's not only Mashiach, Hashem's anointed one, but he's also Melech. And a Melech, the law about Jewish kings is that they're not a king until the people accept them. So when the Rebbe said that Mashiach has already been appointed, that refers to Hashem's job. Hashem appoints Mashiach, just like Hashem appoints all Jewish kings. And we know that the appointing of the most famous Jewish kings was a private event. It wasn't a public event with a lot of fanfare. Moshe, who was considered a king, he didn't have the title, but he was considered by everybody a king. Moshe was appointed in complete privacy at the burning bush. Shaul, the very first king, was appointed in complete privacy. And David HaMelech was appointed, it was only his family was present, the prophet. Hashem was talking to the prophet Shmuel and said, that's the guy. Pour the oil on his head. And it was a totally private event, and nobody found out about it for a very long time. So anyway, the Rebbe said that the appointment has passed. It's already taken place. And the rest is up to us. So I didn't finish the other things that I wanted to say, which is that, we know that the job is up to us, and we know that, sorry about that. And we know that we were given all the tools to accomplish the job that we need. And we know that what we're doing tonight, learning about Mashiach actively, is the best thing that you can do. It's the fastest way to speed up Mashiach's the complete 9 yards. So I want to go. I'm not going to talk long. I want to go straight to. I want to tell a couple of stories, and we learned last week, we were talking last week about a very interesting halacha. And that halacha is that, Mashiach is a king. And and we know that we reviewed what were some of the things we know about a Jewish king. A Jewish king, the most basic job of the Jewish king, the lowest job, is maintaining law and order, both within the kingdom and without the kingdom, against other nations. Another thing that the king does is that he's a role model. And when we see how he behaves, we model that. That's a very important part. And also the king is a teacher. The king, even in the time of Mashiach, when we're going to know the Torah backwards and forwards, Mashiach will still know more. And anyway, but we also learned that in the Talmud, it says a very, very interesting thing. We talked about this last week, and we're going to talk. I'm going to tell two stories that are relevant to it. We heard that someone who makes the slightest move in front of it makes the slightest move of not paying attention or disrespect or not disrespect, but just taking his focus off the king if he's in front of the king, daydreaming, whatever it is, scratching his nose, that on the books, he's chayiv misa. He is subject to the death penalty for that. And we asked last week, what? Are Jewish kings' egos are they so fragile that we need a law like that? And the answer is no. A Jewish king's ego is not fragile. A Jewish king, the whole concept of kingship is that a king is he's a transparent connect. The quality of kingship, as it's understood in Hasidic teachings, is that a king has nothing of his own. He is there completely for the people. He exists for the people's sake. He has no ego. And so anyway, so why is this strange law? Why are people chayiv misa? Why do they risk the death penalty for taking their focus off the king if they're in front of the king? And the answer is the main job of the king is that he connects the essence of the Jew with the essence of Hashem. And in order to be able to do that, he has to have essence in him. He has to have the essence of the Jew in him as well. And so when a Jew fools around with that connection, the connection between the king and him, he is fooling around with his own essence, and the natural result of that is end of life. So, okay, here we go. So I'm going to tell two stories very, very, very briefly. The first story is the first story I've told before, so I'm just going to tell it very, very, very quickly. And here it is. The first story, these stories take place the same time, these announcements took place in early 1991. These stories both take place in the summer of 1991. The first is my story, and I've told it before. I'm sure I've told it before, so I'm going to tell it very fast. And that story is that in the summer of 1991, I did not know who the Lubavitcher Rebbe was. I mean, I'd heard about the Lubavitcher Rebbe, but I didn't know a thing about him. I had already been Torah observant for 7 years. Is it 7 years by then? I don't know how long it was, but for a while, for several years. And I was living in New York, and I was the vice principal of a women's seminary already, not Lubavitch. And I had seen many great people. I had seen many, many great people. Many great rabbis, the most famous rabbis in the world. I worked before I had that job. I worked when I first came to New York to start learning Torah. I worked for the National Society of Hebrew Day Schools. I was their writer, and I went to they it's called Torah Umasora. And Torah Umasora hosts a giant convention every year. And the biggest, they're called Gedolim. The biggest rabbis in America are there. And I met them, and I had seen another, great rabbis from Israel, a great rabbi, at least one great rabbi that I can remember from Israel. I'd had a conversation with him. And so I'd seen great people in the past. So, I wasn't so, okay, I'll go see this one. And I stood in line and I said to Hillel the entire time I was in the line. And as I've said many times before, a very common reaction when people would go to the Rebbe and see the Rebbe, the Rebbe gave out dollars on Sunday to different people who were waiting in line. He would give $1 and a blessing. The dollar was so that you could give charity. Take this dollar and give it to charity. Do a mitzvah with it. Rebbe always encourages people to do mitzvahs. And so this was a kind of encouragement to do mitzvahs. So everybody, there was a huge line of women and a huge line of men. And in my line, my line inched slowly forward. I was there with a friend who had told me, this guy gives brachas to get married. Let's go. And so I said, oh, he gives brachas to get married. I'll go do something like that. And we were there. My friend's name was Simachava, and we were standing in line. And finally, it was my turn in front of the Rebbe. And as I said before, the very common reaction that people had was that they lost their power to speak when they were standing in front of the Rebbe. Just when they were, everybody had something that they wanted to ask the Rebbe for. Everybody has problems. Everybody has something near and dear to their heart. Everybody has difficulties. There's not a person on the face of this earth that doesn't have challenges, big challenges. And so it's a terrible thing to do, to lose your voice right when you're there. You're at the opportunity to, to ask for a blessing. So I didn't lose my voice. I asked the Rebbe for blessings for myself, for my sister, and for my parents. And I remember the Rebbe's voice very beautifully. This is for you. This is for your parents. This is for your sister. And I have to say that I believe my niece, it was early summer. My niece was born relatively 9 months later. I don't know if it's exactly to the day because I don't know the day in early summer 1991 that I went. It was May probably, but I don't know exactly. So I can't tell you that, but my niece was born February 1993. And, 1992. Yeah, 1992, February 23rd. So anyway, I said what I wanted when I was in front of the Rebbe, and then I moved off. They ask you to move off, so I moved off. And as soon as I got outside the building, there was a little wrought iron fence, and I grabbed that little wrought iron fence, and I looked at it. I said, "Ooh, that looks good." And I bent down and I grabbed it because I knew I needed it, and I started sobbing from the depths of my being. And I didn't stop for, it seemed to me, 20 minutes. And all the people in line had to go past me. What's wrong with that woman? What's wrong with her? And my friend Simachava was saying, Shlomo Yonas, are you okay over there? And I kept looking up saying, I'm fine. I don't know what is happening to me. I'm fine. I'm happy. And I just cried and cried and cried. I found out many years later, I didn't know why I was crying. I didn't know why I had such a reaction. So I found many years later when the essence of the soul surfaces, the result is tears. Whatever the Rebbe has, he pulled the essence out of me. He pulled the essence out of me. And as we said, that's a definition of a king. A king is connected to the Jew on the level of essence. I never experienced anything like it. I had many other bizarre experiences with the Rebbe that were inexplicable, just, very inexplicable, but only because I'd never experienced anybody like the Rebbe before. So I want to tell a story. And that's my first story. The second story, I want to tell it because it's almost identical to my story. I met somebody a couple of weeks ago, and we became friends right away. And I feel she's like very much, she's a very, very interesting woman. She's a Jewish woman. She's and she also and her story is that she was frum. She probably frum from birth. Probably she was a Torah observant from birth, but she wasn't a Lubavitcher. And when she and some at some point in her marriage, her husband became a Lubavitcher, and they live in Israel. They lived in Israel, and they lived in Israel, and so anyway, so he went to the Rebbe by himself, and she told him, you know what? Next time, I don't know what this is. I don't know what this Rebbe business is, but next time you go to America to see the Rebbe, don't go in September because I can't go then. She teaches. She said, go in the summer so I can go with you. So she went with, so that's what he did. He didn't go in September. He went in the summer, and he brought his wife. And she said that when she was standing in line to see the Rebbe and she was getting closer, all of a sudden her body, and she's not a timid woman whatsoever. She's a strong, stately, interesting woman. And she said all of a sudden her body was shaking, was so furiously. And she was so embarrassed because she couldn't stop it. Her body was shaking like a leaf, and she didn't know what it was. She had no idea. It wasn't. She wasn't afraid. Her body was just shaking like a leaf. And by the time when she got to the Rebbe, she couldn't open her mouth. She couldn't say a thing. So they were there. They were going to be there. They were in America not for one day. They were staying in Crown Heights for a short while. And so when she got home, that's it. She started practicing in front of the mirror. Next time I'm going to see the Rebbe, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be able to say what I want to say. And so she practiced what she wanted to say again and again. Then she was standing with a bunch of women, I guess in 770 in the synagogue, and somebody yelled out, the Rebbe's giving dollars. I don't know if he's giving it especially for women or what, but the Rebbe's giving dollars. And so people ran to get blessings from the Rebbe. They just ran. And she wanted to run, but this time her feet would not move. She couldn't move. She couldn't get out. She couldn't move from her place. And everybody else got dollars and blessings from the Rebbe. And finally, the Rebbe was ready to leave. And a woman yelled out to the Rebbe, but Rebbe, there's one more person. And the Rebbe turned around and he looked at her, and she could not move. She felt like her feet were cemented to the floor. She absolutely couldn't move. And the Rebbe just looked at her with tremendous patience and interest, and she could not move. So what happened? A nice woman came behind her and gave her a big shove. And finally she got to the Rebbe. And so that's what it's not a normal kind of thing. It's not a normal rabbi and Jew kind of thing. There is something that goes straight to the Rebbe, something with the Rebbe that goes straight to the essence. Just like it says about a Jewish king, that a Jewish king is tied to each Jew by the essence. Anyway, I want to wish everybody a good week, and I'll wish my friend Shoshana a happy birthday. It's her birthday tonight. And I look forward to speaking to you guys again. Everybody be well. Have a good night.